everyone. Today we are diving into the globalization of the world economy. While we often think of globalization as just a buzzword for international trade, we are going to look at it through an architectural lens. We'll analyze how the world has moved from isolated domestic markets to a complex integrated network where no nation is an island. This analysis is crucial for anyone studying international finance, as the rules of the game have fundamentally changed in the last few decades. Let's start by defining what we actually mean by globalization. It is the economic integration and growing interdependence of nations. But what does that look like in practice for finance professionals? First, it expands the total addressable market. Companies are no longer restricted by the borders of their home country. They can scale globally. Second, it drives capital efficiency. Money is like water, it flows to where it can get the highest yield. However, this comes with a volatility exposure. Because markets are linked, a fluctuation in the forex market in one corner of the world can create an immediate systematic risk for a portfolio on the other side of the planet. Now, to understand how this architecture holds up, we look at the four pillars. First, trade expansion. It's not about selling more, it's about optimizing comparative advantages. What you do best and trading for the rest. Second, capital mobility. Thanks to FDI and FII mechanisms, liquidity moves across borders within seconds. Rise of MNCs. Transactional corporations are the new architects. They manage production across multiple jurisdictions, often navigating 20 or 30 different tax regimes. Market integration. We are seeing a convergence. Prices, interest rates, and even regulatory frameworks are aligning to a global standard, making the world more predictable for investors. Now, how do we measure if a country is winning or losing in the global system? We look at the balance of trade or BOT. The formula is simple: exports minus imports. Look at the example on the slide. If country A exports 150 billion but only imports 100 billion, they have a 50 billion trade plus. In the world of international finance, this isn't just a number. It represents a net accumulation of foreign reserves and typically a strengthening of that nation's currency. It is the primary indicator of a nation's health within the global trade network. For a real world example of this architecture shifting, we look at India in 1991. Before this, we lived in a licensed Rashtra, a closed economy with low growth and restricted capital. The 1991 LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, and globalization unlocked the door. We saw a deregulation of industries and a massive FDI explosion. Perhaps most importantly, it paved the path for the service boom. India didn't just follow the traditional manufacturing path. We became the back office of the world by leveraging globalization and data of labor. Now we must weigh the scales. On the advantage side, we have resource efficiency and a massive consumer surplus. You get better products at lower prices because of global competition. But the limitations are just as significant. We face contagion risk, as we saw in 2008. A mortgage risk in the US can freeze credit markets in Asia within hours. There is also the issue of income inequality and sovereignty loss. When a nation becomes too dependent on global market sentiment, it often loses the ability to dictate its own independent monetary policy. To wrap up, globalization is the engine of modern capital efficiency, but it requires robust risk management to survive the contagion risk it creates. And most important takeaway for the future is the shift toward digital globalization. The era of moving physical containers is being rivaled by the era of moving data and services. As we move forward, the nations and corporations that thrive will be those that can navigate the digital integration as effectively as they navigated the trade of physical goods. Thank you.